What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Rock Your Brand podcast. Today, we are going to be, we're going to be talking a little truth here about what it's really like being a new Etsy seller with less than 100 sales. That is something that I know is, it's an obstacle that a lot of people face. And there's been some also people out there saying like, maybe you should just start a brand new Etsy shop. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But what I wanted to do here is I wanted to jump on and I wanted to go through the reality and kind of give a check here and say, hey, where are you right now? And where are you struggling? And then give you some real expectations, but then also give you some things that you can do to get over that hurdle. Because I know a lot of people struggle here, but this is going to be the truth. This is going to be, no fluff. I'm not going to sit here and tell you things just to get you excited about selling on Etsy, because yes, it's a great platform, but there are some things we need to be aware of. And we need to have the right expectations. So that's what we're going to be doing here. I'm going to go through some different things here that I want to address. And that I think every new Etsy seller that is 100 sales or less, or if maybe you got your 100 sales, but then you kind of stalled and you're thinking to yourself, what is going on? We're going to talk about that as well. So Chris, I know we have a lot to cover here today. We've got a jam-packed show here. Is there anything that I left out there to tee up this topic of the reality of, a new Etsy seller?
I think the biggest thing, Scott, is that people seem to fall into one of two camps, right? Either the sky is falling and there's no reason to ever sell on Etsy ever again. There's no traffic, there's no sale, nobody's doing anything. That's a lie. Or Etsy's a rosy, happy place where dreams come true, right? And there's nothing that ever goes wrong on the platform. That seems to be the two places that people seem to be falling. And you and I kind of fall somewhere in the middle where we say, hey, look, there's some things you need to be aware of. And if you do a few basic things right, then you start to feel like it's a rosy, happy place that brings you in traffic and sales. And I think the biggest changes that have happened over the last, 12 to 18 months, I think is probably a fair timeline to give to that, really affect new sellers more than they affect existing sellers. So if you have fewer than 100 sales, or you started maybe a while ago and you're just getting back in the groove of things, these are things you're going to want to be aware of. And we want this to be a realistic picture. And Scott, you and I have been talking about some of the doom and gloom things, some of the things that Etsy has changed,
Sure.
But we do it from a tough love place. And this is another one of those things where it's like, look, there's still a huge opportunity here, but you need to be aware of what the reality is, what the expectations are and should be. And if you are, then you can get past that 100 sales mark. You can start to see all of the benefits and all of the reasons why we love Etsy as a platform.
Yeah, no, I love it. So let me ask real quick, if you're watching this live or if you're here on the recording, watching the replay of this, let us know, are you new and are you under 100 sales right now? So I'd like to know that in the comments. If you could do that, that would be amazing. I'll also throw it out here and just kind of let you guys know, we do have a free guide that we follow that will help you along to get your first 100 sales. If you want a copy of that, we call it our 100K roadmap, because it's the exact roadmap that we followed to build my wife's Etsy shop to $100,000 in sales. If you would like a copy, 100K in the comments, and we will make sure that you get a copy of that. All right. So with that being said, Chris, I'm going to go ahead. I got a little fancy here today, and I actually created a few slides here. And little secret here, a little insider thing here. I did this so I can actually stay on track of everything that I want to cover. So I'm kind of cheating here for myself. So this way here, I can make sure that I don't leave anything out. So the very first thing is, it's not easy. And we need to set real expectations. If you're thinking that, you're going to be able to launch a product and you're going to be able to make $10,000 a month, I'm here to tell you that that is probably not going to happen. I think you'd probably have a better chance of probably just going and buying like 10 scratch offs. You might have a better chance of doing that. Now I'm not like 100% serious in that, but I am pretty serious, because there's the same amount, like people think you're just going to launch this t-shirt because everyone is saying that this this t-shirt is trending, or an expert told you that, and you're going to go on and sell it. But what they don't tell you is hundreds or thousands of other people are doing the same exact thing. And we want to make sure that we're being realistic. We're being realistic with what the expectations are. All right. Now, can you get to 100 sales per month? Absolutely. Like 100%. I do believe that you can do that, but I don't think it's going to happen overnight. There are some things which we're going to cover these here, and it's going to help you not just set the right expectations, but also have a better chance of hitting your expectations. Because that's the other thing I'd like to say is your expectations, okay, need to be your targets. And we've talked about this before, and I'll just briefly touch on this, right? For you, it might be, I want to make $1,000 per month. Great. It's target. Okay. Can you make $1,000 per month on Etsy? Yes. Are you going to do it in the next 30 days? Probably not, because it takes work. It takes coming up with great designs, or maybe it's going to take you a week to create that design because you're not that great at design yet, because we're learning. All right. But you have to set those expectations. All right. Now, if you're not hitting the 100 sales and you've done everything right, which you probably haven't, I haven't, we always are learning. Every time that I do a video for this YouTube channel, I'm learning something, right? I'm trying to improve. So we always want to be improving. But if you did everything right and you're not getting the 100 sales that you want, well, there's probably a reason somewhere in the chain there that is broken. And some of the things we're going to cover here today will help you with that. But again, I just want to set the right expectation for you. I am not going to sit here, Chris is not going to sit here and say, you can launch an Etsy shop and start making $1,000 a month in 30 days. I'm not going to sit here and say, is it possible? Yeah, there's a chance you could hit a home run, but the chances are it's probably not going to be. And if you do hit that $1,000, it might not be profitable, which is another thing we're going to talk about, because that's another thing that everyone, well, they don't realize is that when you're doing this, when you're starting an Etsy shop and you're starting an e-commerce business, a lot of times you're not going to make money up front. I mean, how many times have we heard that? A business usually goes in the negative for 2 to 3 years or more, and they're okay with that. All right. So anything I left out there, Chris, that you want to touch on before we move on to thing number 2? And I know these are really, sophisticated, bullets here. I got like thing number 1, thing number 2. Chris, anything I left out there?
I am wearing the Dr. Seuss red today, so I guess that makes me thing 2 and you thing 1, right? I think the biggest thing, Scott, and this is exactly what you're hammering on when you're saying set realistic expectations. One of the things that we see all the time, and if you guys have been hanging out with us here at Brand Creators for a while, you've probably seen the beautiful dancing avocado mug, right? You'll see thumbnails like this on YouTube that say, sell this and make $10,000 a month, right? That is not realistic. And one of the things, Scott, whether we're talking about getting started on Etsy or just getting started in general, that we all should be doing a better job of is setting a goal. Now, just saying, I want to make $10,000 a month, not necessarily a good goal, right? A SMART goal is both an acronym and a way of thinking about that, right? Something that is specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, or realistic, depending on who you ask, and time bound. And what we're talking about here is just setting those initial expectations. Scott, how realistic that are in SMART is it to get to the 100 sales in your first month if you're just getting started?
If you're just getting started, I mean, it's realistic, but it's going to take work. I would say your first 30 days is you're building, right? You're building. So I think to hit 100 sales in your first month, it can happen, but realistically, I'd say we should probably shoot for maybe the second, third, maybe fourth month.
And I think the thing that most people miss here is that they think they can either create as many products as possible in that first 30 days and they're guaranteed to hit it, right? We've heard people say you need to launch 100 products, 500 products, 1,000 products, 5,000 products to be able to do this, which is not realistic, nor is it relevant, nor is it good advice, right? But the first 30 to 60 days really should be focused on figuring out, really drilling in on your niche, creating the products that you know are already selling in the market, and figuring out exactly what's resonating with the customers based on the early data. Once we get some of that data back, then we can start to scale. And the beautiful thing about the Etsy ecosystem is it will seem like a very slow drip, right? And the stereotypical analogy here would be the snowball rolling down the hill, right? We get a little bit of a thing, maybe it's the avalanche analogy, right? We get a little bit of a snowball and then it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it turns into a whole avalanche. And that's exactly the way that this works on Etsy. So if we get a few sales our first month, as long as we're focusing on the right things up front, that's a good place to start. And then as we start to get better at understanding what the market wants, serving what the market needs, understanding the data and the analytics, then we'll start to see that volume massively increase without having to launch a million different products, right? The sales bring in more sales within the Etsy ecosystem. You and I have talked about the Etsy flywheel in the past. That's one of the things. So if you're just getting started, you haven't hit those 100 sales yet, but you feel like you're headed in the right direction. You're starting to get a little bit of traffic. Maybe you started to get a few sales. That's a good thing, right? Don't feel like just because you're 30, 60, even 90 days into this, that just because you haven't hit that 100 sales mark yet, that you're not headed in the right direction. The data that Etsy gives us at the early stage will tell us if what we're doing will get us there. And once we get there, then it's very easy to go from 100 to 200 to 500 to 1,000 and beyond.
Yeah, let me say one thing here before we move on to thing number two, is yes, if you are launching in Q4, there's a greater chance you're going to hit 100 sales quicker. Like, absolutely. Why? Because there's more buyers. And Q4, which we'll get to, it's the biggest selling time of the year for everyone, like every platform, Amazon, eBay, Etsy, your own Shopify store, like whatever. There's more people buying. And generally, most of the industries, and the niches are going to be buying in that time. So if you started in November, there's a good chance you might hit your target quicker. Of course. I mean, that makes sense, right? That's common sense. All right. So let's move on, Chris. And I am going to, I'm going to bring up the next thing here with what I'm going to do. And that is Etsy doesn't just give you free traffic. You have to earn it. This is something, when I was putting these together, I'm like, this is something that I see a lot of people not understand. And what I mean by that is they're looking at it like you said, Chris, just launch a whole bunch of products. You got a new shop, and Etsy is going to say, oh, new shop, a whole bunch of products, flood it with all of these new products because you're new and we want to give you free traffic because we're Etsy and we're nice. That's not how it works, right? You have to earn it. And Chris, I'm going to let you take this one. How would we earn? How do we earn it? And tell Etsy or show Etsy that we're worth sending us traffic. I'm gonna pitch it to you, Chris.
Well, I just talked about that Etsy traffic flywheel, right? Sales beget sales, just to throw in a Bible word there for you, right? The biggest thing with Etsy, like any search engine, and don't be mistaken. Yes, Etsy runs offsite ads. They have a whole program. They have a whole team of people like me who do nothing but buy ads. But the vast majority of traffic and sales that come from the Etsy platform come from organic search, meaning somebody's either using gift mode or they're typing something into the Etsy search bar, finding the product that they want to buy, and then purchasing it. Like any search engine, right? Whether it's Google, Amazon, Etsy, anytime we're trying to put something in front of somebody after they search for something on the website, the goal is to put the thing in front of them that they are going to interact with the most. So in the case of Google, it's let's go over to the website that's going to give them the answer. In the case of Etsy or Amazon, it's what product are they going to buy? So if we start to drive sales early, then we show Etsy all of the things that they need to see. The first thing they're going to want to see is traffic. What happens when some people go to that listing? There's a reason, Scott. Etsy in their documentation talks about giving new listings a little bit of a boost to see how they do when they show them to people, right? Every time you create a new listing on Etsy, it gives you a little bit of a boost in the organic rankings to see, hey, if we put this new thing up against Scott's 2-year-old listing, how does it do? Does it do better or worse? What are they looking at there? Well, they're looking at, if I show this next to Scott's listing, do more people click on it when we show it? Okay, cool. That's one piece of data. And then piece of data number 2, if they click on it, do more people buy it than when we show Scott's listing? That's what they are looking for. And if we can give Etsy even a little bit of that data, then they start to give us traffic, right? You have to earn traffic on Etsy. You don't just get visits and sales because you exist. You have to prove to them that you are the best answer to the question that somebody is typing in. And the easiest way to do that is to get a little bit of traffic and a little bit of sales. And once you start to have some of those metrics coming in, you'll start to see that flywheel of traffic and sales really start to take off.
Yeah, no, you explained that very well. And I always just like to tell people, like, Etsy cares about one thing. That's all they care about, and that is sales. They want sales. Okay. And if you have a listing that's getting sales, then they're going to send more people to that listing. And if you're brand new, like Chris said, they may give you a little bit of reach just to say, hey, I wonder if we give them a little bit for a search, or if we put it up near the one that's selling, will it perform better? And then what it's going to look at is two different things. It's going to look at, okay, did people see it and then buy it? Or did people see it but didn't buy it? And then we're going to say, okay, well, there's something not right there. So we're only going to show the one or the ones that are getting sales. They're not just going to rotate them because they want to be nice. Okay. Now, if you're paying for Etsy ads, they will rotate, but there is also some truth there that if you're selling better and you've got a better conversion rate, then your ads will have a higher placement because, again, even though you're paying, they still want that to convert for the other person paying too, because they know if that person starts getting sales and keeps getting sales, they're going to keep spending on Etsy ads, right? So there's a lot of that goes into both sides, organic and into the paid side.
I think that's something people miss when we talk about ads. And one of the reasons you and I really like ads, Scott, is one, it gives us data. But two, if we are selling better, right? Let's say you and I are both running ads. We're spending the exact same amount on a daily basis. Who would Etsy rather show? Well, they'd rather show the person making more sales, because not only are they going to get the 25, 30 cents for that click, but they're also going to get the 6.5% transaction fee. They're going to get the relisting fee, right? If they sell that product. So even on the paid side of this, Etsy is always going to favor the product that has the highest chance to sell. And we don't have to have a huge sales history to be able to start to compete in those places, because what they're doing is every single time somebody runs a search on Etsy, they're comparing all of the products that are relevant for that and saying, here's what we think the best options are. Even giving them a few sales or a few visits is enough to get that flywheel started.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can't stress that enough. Like, that's what they want. Right. And so then the next question always is like, well, how do you get sales? We'll get there. Okay. But there's some other things. And this was thing number 2. And we're going to move on here, Chris. So let's keep rolling here. And we do have questions. If you guys have questions, drop them in the comments and we'll make sure that we try to address them. All right. Thing number 3, product demand is everything. And this could be why you are struggling. This is a big one. And this is where I have people that will message me or reach out to Chris and they're like, I'm doing everything right. I've got a great product. At least you think it's a good product. The market kind of looked at it and might have said, nah, I don't really like it. Your designs aren't that good. It happens. All right. So we have to look at the demand first, because if you're like, this product, I created it because I think people like it, or they're going to like it. I think people are searching for this. I think people are buying this on a regular basis. I think 100 people have bought this in the last month. We have to stop thinking and we have to start proving and we have to start seeing the data. All right. And this is where I'm going to give a little shameless plug to our friends over at Everbee, because without Everbee, we are guessing. Okay. Now we can look at shops and see in through their reviews and kind of comb through their reviews and go, oh, well, they've gotten, 10 reviews in the last month for this one product. So I know at least they sold 10. But with Everbee, we're able to actually look at the data. And Chris, if you can put that up one more time, go to brandcreators.com/Everbee if you want to try it for free. That's the tool that we use. Yes, we're an affiliate for it. Yes, you'll buy us a cup of coffee, but that helps to support the channel. So we would appreciate that. If you want to try it out, like I said, it's free to try it. If you want to go to the growth plan, you can upgrade. And then there's a bunch of other cool things that you get to use, like keyword research, email marketing, all of those cool things as well. So brandcreators.com/Everbee. So it's really, I said that 3 times because it's that important, that we want to make sure that we have the demand, because you can do all this work right? All of the work, the optimization, the SEO, the keywords, like all of this stuff, we can do it all. But if you're doing it for nothing because there's no one searching for it, or there's only a handful of people searching for it on a regular basis, you're done before you even get started. Okay. So that's the big one. That's the big one. All right. So we have to make sure that the products that we're launching actually have demand. You might be saying, I wonder why I haven't gotten 100 sales yet. I mean, this is really hard. But then if I took your products and I did a little analysis and I said, okay, well, show me proof that there's 100 of those that have already sold, or 100 that have sold in the last 30 days, or if there's more than one seller that have sold them. Because you got to remember, if there's 100 sales and someone got those 100 sales and there's no other sellers that are selling it, but they sell it, then that means that there's only 100 sales per month that are available. All right. So we have to look at that too. We want to see more sales that we're really actually trying to get, because then we know that there's enough there for us too. All right. But this is a big mistake. And if you are struggling right now, I would want you to go investigate that. All right. I think we've done 18 or 19 Etsy shop audits so far. We do one a week. They come out every Thursday. So make sure that you subscribe to the channel. That way you'll get notified of when they go live. They go live every Thursday morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. But we've done 19 of those so far. I believe it's 19. And almost every single one, we look at it and we go, okay, did you do product research to see the demand? I would say a majority are like, no, right? Or, yeah, I think I did. And then you look and you're like, I'm not seeing the numbers. Okay. And then once we show them that process, then it's like, oh, okay. And then we usually will do like a little deep dive during the audit to kind of show them like, oh, here's an opportunity that looks good. But you see this one over here that you picked, not so good, or there's just not enough there. All right. So that's a big one. And if you are not doing that, if you're struggling, not at 100 sales yet, that's what you need to do. Like, you need to make sure that you have at least 3 to 5 products that allow you to hit that 100 sales, right? That's big. I want you to write that one down, right? Do research to make sure that there's enough demand to hit my 100 sales. Really important. Like, if we were in class right now, I'd be like, that's your homework assignment. I want you to come back tomorrow and I want you to show me proof that your product is getting the 100 sales that you want, or there's 3 shops that are getting those sales. Okay. Because that could be the problem, right? You're doing all this work. You're busy. I get it. You're busy, right? You're creating listings and you're going into Printify and you're creating the product there and you're adding a new design and you're creating your mock-ups and then you're creating the listing and you're optimizing. You're looking for keywords, like all of that stuff. Sound familiar? Let me know in the comments. Does that sound familiar? Busy, right? But all that busy work might be for nothing, because what you're doing isn't really what you should be doing. You should be focusing on 3 to 5 products minimum that are giving you the demand that you need. Okay. Chris, anything that I missed there that you want to address on thing number 3?
I think the biggest thing you said there, Scott, you repeated the word several times. You said, I think. There's a lot of places in business where you are allowed to say, I think, and you can get away with it. However, we cannot, little engine that could, our way to success, right? We can't dream board or vision board our way to success when it comes to the existence of demand for the things that we are selling. And Scott, thing number 3, and I think the slide said, demand is, in all caps, everything. And you could not have understated that more, right? We need like wiggly waving line letters. We need underline. We need bold. We need red font, right? This should be it should just say everything. That should be the entire slide, because we can create the most beautiful listings on the planet that can be SEO'd to perfection. We can have the most human-friendly, readable keyword title, right? The best images, the best product video, the best tags. But if no one is looking for it, it's irrelevant. We mentioned a minute ago, Etsy is at its heart a search engine. Yes, they drive external traffic, but when people come, the vast majority of purchases start either with somebody selecting through the search engine with Etsy's gift mode, or by typing something into that search bar. And if no one is typing it in, they're never going to see your amazing listing. And so if we forget the demand side of this, then we lose everything, right? We can create the world's best product and the world's best listing, but if no one's looking for it, no one is ever going to see it. So we have to start with that. Now, Scott, is there an exception to this? And I think there is. Once we've gotten started, maybe we have an email list, we have a lot of repeat customers coming in, then we can start to look at some products or come up with more creative ideas on things that don't already exist in the market. And I think you agree with me on that because we've talked about this in the past, right? We have a lot of products that are in your wife's shop that we would never have launched based on trying to get sales on them if we didn't have the email list to say, hey, you will probably like this, even though nobody's searching for it right now on Etsy. That's a perfectly fine thing to do. But when we're first getting started, especially if we're trying to get the 100 sales and start that flywheel rolling, we have to focus on a niche and products that have demand that people are already looking for.
Yeah. And I think the analogy that I always like to use is like you have a brick and mortar store and you're going to open it, but you know that people are primarily looking for, and I'll just use like bass fishing because it's easy, right? And you're like, people are always looking for a fishing pole. They're going to come in the shop for a fishing pole, but while they're there, they might be looking for tackle. They might be looking for a tackle box. They might be looking for a vest, but they're not searching for it, but it's something that they could see and want. So I always tell people, like in the beginning, we're always looking for the demand product. So that way there we can bring in the right traffic. And then once we get the foot traffic, then we can fill out our shop with items that might not be searched for right now, but it would be them kind of with their shopping cart going through the aisles and going like, oh, that's nice. I'll pull that in there. Right. That's kind of how I look at it. But we got to start with the demand. And when you're first starting your shop and you're going to put all this time and effort into it, we want to get like you said, Chris, the flywheel going. And the way to do that is with those products that have the demand. So that way there, we can get the right people in. Once we get the right people in, we can do all the other fun stuff, which we'll probably be covering more here as we keep going through this. So let me move on, Chris. Let me go into the next thing, which will be thing number 4. Ooh, this is a big one. This is another good one. I hear this a lot, and people are always like, "Well, Scott, I can't do the launch like you've talked about, like running Etsy ads and reducing my cost. I just can't." I just can't do that. And Chris, I'm going to bring it back up again real quick. Sacrificing profits in the beginning, it's a big mistake. And the reason why is because have you ever heard of a business that opened its doors and never spent money on advertising? I haven't. Like, I mean, there might be like an old mom and pop shop that's like, hey, let's just go ahead and open up a little hot dog stand and put it at the end of the driveway, and cars are driving by. They might be hungry, right? Like maybe, but for the most part, if they're going to buy a building, build it out, right? They need traffic. So they either have to go where the traffic is. And if they're going to go where the traffic is, they're probably paying a good amount of money for that building and the rent and the lease and stuff, right? Maybe $3,000, $5,000 a month. So they're paying something for the traffic any way you look at it. But you want to start the Etsy shop and you just want to be like, you know what? I'm just going to go there. It's free. I mean, depending, you might have had to pay $15 to now open up a shop, and I know that's a big deal. A lot of people are all squawking about that. Oh my gosh, they want to charge me $15 to open a shop. How dare they charge me for getting in front of their traffic? But the way I always look at it is like in the very beginning, we have to build awareness. We have to get sales. We have to get reviews, all of those things. So if we reduce our price and we run Etsy ads and we made zero money, we're still winning. We're still building the business. But so many people are like, I can't reduce my price. I can't give 25% off, Scott, because if I do, it's print on demand and I'll lose all my money, all my profits. But do you want people to find you? Do you want people to see your stuff? What did we talk about in, I believe it was thing number 1. Maybe it was thing number 2. Well, it was a point that I made. Etsy cares about one thing, sales. So you have to get sales. And if that means that you have to reduce your price or run Etsy ads aggressively, any of that stuff in order to get sales so you can get known and get seen and build an email list and all of those other things, which we'll talk about, you got to sacrifice that in the beginning. You have to, right? If, like I said, if we were sitting down and you were like, I'm going to buy an Airbnb, right? I'm going to buy a house. I'm going to turn it into an Airbnb. It's going to cost you money up front. You probably won't make any money back the first year. I know that for a fact. I've done it. Okay. So you have to invest in the business. And this is one thing that a lot of Etsy sellers are just missing, and they're not understanding it. Hopefully you're watching this and you understand it. And let me know in the comments, does that make sense that you need to get your own traffic by, well, discounting your price or running Etsy ads and sacrificing the profits to build the business in the beginning? Anybody agree, disagree? Let me know in the comments. Chris, I know you're going to have thoughts on this. And it's nice if Chris actually turned on his mic, we can hear him. There he goes.
It says I'm muted.
Yeah, you were muted.
So I'm unmuted now, but I have the thing that says I'm muted. So that's fun.
We can hear you.
Whatever. We'll go with it. Absolute Freedom says, you're obviously not in print on demand if you're talking about that. I disagree, right? And I think this is a place where people get very confused. They think that to compete, even selling, let's say, a print on demand t-shirt, something like that, that you have to sell at the same price point to be able to do that. You don't, right? So make sure that you're pricing things to make profit. I think your point, Scott, is that you have to be willing to invest in the business up front, right? The average business, and we need to treat this like a business. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme. This is not a lottery ticket, Scott. This is not an overnight success type of a thing. This is a business. The average business takes 2 to 3 years to become profitable. Now, we can do that in a much shorter time frame using something like Etsy to help us, but we need to be willing to invest into that business. Whether we're break even or maybe even losing a little bit of money up front, that can be okay as long as we understand that that's not going to be where we're selling things forever, right? If we're driving ads in the beginning, we need to pay attention to the data that's coming back, right? We don't just want to light our money on fire. We need to spend intelligently. But ads and investing in ads up front are a great way to get not only, Scott, that early traffic and sales, but the data that you need to optimize on the organic side as well in a much shorter time frame, a few weeks to maybe 2 to 3 months, as opposed to 6 to 12 months that it would take you on the organic side, right? Same thing goes with pricing. If we're discounting a little more aggressively than we will normally, or even pricing a little more aggressively than we would normally, although I would advocate for the discount model rather than coming in and pricing it just at $12 or whatever you're going to end up selling it for, right? We need to understand that that is a short-term thing to increase conversion rates to start that flywheel going. And we need to be okay with not making $1 million right away. If we need $1,000 this week and we're just getting started on the Etsy platform, probably not the right place to be. Maybe see if we can get a loan from somebody to cover that rather than thinking we're going to make $1,000 overnight. If we treat this like a business, then not being profitable at the beginning is not quite as big of a deal. Now, Scott, the question and the pushback I know that we're going to get is, well, how long should I not be profitable for? Or you're advocating that I go into debt to be able to do this? Like, what does that roadmap to profitability actually look like when people get into the ecosystem?
Well, I think it's going to vary on the individual. You know, the way that we've always done it is we're always thinking to ourselves, and again, we'll get into more of this here, so I don't want to get too far ahead, but basically, we are always thinking to ourselves, number one, if we have a customer buy one thing, we want them to buy the second thing, the third thing, the fourth thing, whether it's then or in the future. So if you're running Etsy ads and you don't have something else for them to buy, it's going to be hard to do that. So we're okay with the front of the Etsy ads maybe not making any money, but someone might buy something at regular price or at a less of a discount over here, right? The other thing is when we get that customer, we now have a chance to sell them something in the future. But again, a lot of Etsy sellers are short-sighted and they're thinking to themselves, well, how do you do that? You build an email list, which we'll get to. And then if I have a customer base of people that have bought from me before, again, we always talk about building a brand in a niche and all of those things. If we do that, well, now when I send an email and I make a sale, I didn't pay for that, right? That's pure profit. So I think in the very beginning, I would say for the first 3 to even sometimes 6 months is I'm going to be rolling everything back in because I want to build the biggest footprint in my niche as possible. So does that mean you have to go in a negative or even no profit to that? No, you can, but you have to see like, okay, what kind of progress are you going? Also, another thing is let's say that you're maybe 3 months before Q4. Well, maybe then you're going to really kind of get that flywheel greased up and ready to go. And then all of a sudden you raise it up. So this way here, your regular price or your less of a discount heading into Q4, right? So we have to do some of that planning. So I think it's going to vary, but I think also whatever your target is, like if you're trying to really dominate a more competitive niche, it's probably going to take a little bit more time. If you're going after a less competitive niche and you're just going after 100 sales a month or something like that, probably less time. You still need to be aggressive, but I think that's a shop by shop basis is what I would say.
So what kind of are you talking about thousands of dollars that you're giving up in profitability, or are we talking a couple bucks a day, $100? Like, what is the budget that we are typically recommending for people to have in place in terms of the ad spend or the discounts? Like, are we losing our shirts for the first few months, or is it a couple bucks a day?
Yeah. Well, okay. So the way that I look at it, and we've talked about this on the channel. If you guys have not subscribed to the channel, here's a little shameless plug. Subscribe to the channel. It'll help you. You'll have more content that you'll be exposed to. But there was actually one that I did recently that talked about our 4-day profit push, and we talked about how we can use our email list to push sales. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because when we're first starting and we're going through this process, let's say that you are brand new and you're trying to hit your 100 sales. So I would run through a launch cycle that not necessarily you don't have an email list yet, so you can't do this. So I'm not going to use that one. I'm going to use the other one, which is like, let's just discount for the first 7 days. So let's discount aggressively. Let's run Etsy ads, maybe $5 a day, and do that for 7 days. And then we're going to reevaluate. How did we do? Did we make a lot of sales? Did we make no sales? Make okay sales? And then do I want to do it again? Or do I want to maybe then reduce my discount just by a little bit so I can start making a few bucks and not be in the red? So it's going to depend on what your target is. And that's why I keep coming back to that. You got to know what your target is. If your target's only 100 sales per month, probably it can be less. You still want to be aggressive with the launch. So I always tell people 7 to 14 days on a product launch. Okay. On a product launch. And that's something you might need to go back to and do again, because you see, oh, my competitor, they're selling 5 a day. I'm only selling 1 a day. You got to figure out a way to sell 5 a day to compete. That's how it works. That's how Etsy works, because Etsy's going to promote products that are selling the most and converting the highest. So I don't know, Chris, did that answer your question?
It did. And I think this really comes back to thing number 3, which is demand is everything, right? If we know what the demand is, then we can sort of backwards engineer that math and say, I know that if I sell a few of these over the next few days, I sell 2 or 3 of these a day over the next few days, even if it's not at my ideal profitability, that will get me the placement that I need in the algorithm. Then I'll start showing Etsy that when they send traffic to my listing, that when they gift me that traffic, like what we were talking about earlier, that it will turn into sales and that people actually like my stuff. And that's really what it's all about. If we don't know that demand, then it does feel like we're just investing money into a black box and we don't know what the result is going to be. And it makes not being immediately profitable a little bit more scary. But if we know the demand and we know what our goal is with each individual listing that we're creating, then it makes that a lot easier and a lot more manageable for the long term.
Yeah, no, I like that. Hey, Chris, before we keep moving on here, we've got more. I think we've got one more thing to cover in this segment. Some people were saying that they're having an issue with the live stream in the app. I just pulled it up on my phone and it seems fine. So I'm not quite sure what's going on over there.
Yeah, I'll take a look on my end here.
Yeah, but guys, let us know in the comments if you're having an issue on the live stream for the app. Just let us know. I don't want to take too much time here because I know people are going to be watching the replay and they're like, listen, we're seeing it just fine. Just keep on going, Scott. So I'm going to keep going here. All right, let's pop this baby up and let's get into thing number 5. And this is going to be my final thing for, well, if you are brand new and to give you the reality check. And that is, you need to think like a real business. I said it earlier about sacrificing profits. That's what real businesses have to do. The other thing I wrote here as a little note is product lines and repeat customers. Those are the two things that you should be thinking about as a business owner. If you know it or not, you are an e-commerce seller. Okay. So today, if you didn't know that, I'm telling you right now, if you're selling on Etsy, you're an e-commerce business. Okay. Congratulations. But I also want to congratulate you because now you know, because you're here and you're watching this, that you should be treating this like an e-commerce business, a real business. And what I mean by that is you're not just selling one-off t-shirts, right? You're not the person that's outside the concert selling Taylor Swift t-shirts that are fakes. Now, we don't want that. A lot of people doing that on Etsy too. Shame on them. Shouldn't be doing it. Taylor's going to come for you. I'm telling you right now. Taylor does not like that. She wants her billions of dollars. But you don't want to be that, right? You want to be a real business, and you need to start thinking like a real business. Okay. Now, Etsy is a great place to launch your business. It's a great place. They have traffic built in. They have a lot of tools built in that you get to use for marketing. They allow you to spend money on ads to get in front of these people quicker, faster, like day one, test some stuff out. I actually did a video, I believe it was last week. And in that video, it was like, if you're struggling and you think that you should be getting sales, but you're not getting sales, do this strategy. And the strategy was basically like reduce your price for 7 days, almost at a break even, run Etsy ads. And if you're not getting sales after that, or if you're not getting impressions, if you're not getting, the data back, then you have a demand problem, or you have a product problem, or a crappy design problem, right? So that's kind of how you can kind of poke holes in your own stuff. If you didn't see that video, I'll link it up in the description. But if you did watch it, you know what I mean. And I had some people say, Scott, I tested it and I started getting some sales and I started getting some data, right? So it's a way to poke holes in your own products to see, why isn't it selling? Are you getting demand? Why aren't you getting demand? Is it just that you didn't do the good research, or maybe your design not that good, right? Because people are clicking, but they ain't buying. Maybe you don't have enough reviews. Like, all of those things will come in. But my point is this: you need to treat this like a real business owner. Okay. And that is, you're sitting down and you're like, okay, we are a bass fishing business. We help people with bass fishing, and people buy gifts for people that are bass fishermen. And we sell apparel, we sell gifts, and we also sell items that the bass fishermen themselves can actually use. Okay, that's what we do. So we're going to do some research and see what people are buying for gifts, and what people are buying around Christmas time, what people are buying for Father's Day. Like, we're going to do all that research, and then we're going to see the demand, and we're going to pick the 3 products, the 5 products, and we're going to launch those products. And then we're going to sit there and go, okay, cool. We got 3 to 5 products that same customer can buy. Can we create more? Okay, cool. We're going to create some more. Now we're going to create some more products that same customer might want, or maybe it's a different item. Now we're going to say, okay, well, sweatshirts are selling really well for other people. Let's go ahead and see if we can sell some sweatshirts. Oh, you know what? Aprons are selling. Those would be great, because if someone's a fisherman, they're probably barbecuing, or they're probably cooking it on the grill, or they're cooking it on their flat, their Blackstone or whatever, right? Like, maybe we do an apron, because aprons are hot right now. Okay, cool. Right. But we're still targeting that person, and we're creating product lines and a way for them to become what? Repeat customers. That's what we want, a repeat customer. So it is so important to really treat this as a real business. And Chris, I know you're going to have a few thoughts here, so I'm going to bring you back up, and you can let me know what those thoughts are.
Feels like I've been screaming about this since thing number 1, right? Like, we need to treat this as a business. And Scott, we did a recording session for the Etsy shop audits. If you guys aren't familiar with that series, that comes out every Thursday. We do a shop audit for somebody who has submitted their shop. We did a recording session last week, and I think this point really encapsulates that audit, which will be coming out in a few weeks, right? The people who really struggle with Etsy are the people, actually, Scott, who Etsy was really intended for originally. They're the artists. They say, hey, if I create cool things, people should just see it, right? Like, I shouldn't have to think about this as a business. I want to focus on my art. I feel you. The problem is we're not in a gallery. We're in the mall, right? Like, we have to not only figure out how to get seen, but we have to then also figure out how to stand out among all of the things that people are seeing. And if we just only focus on the art side of this and creating beautiful things, we don't think about the demand. We don't think about how the numbers that we get back from Etsy, all of the data that we get back from Etsy, impact how our listings are seen, like someone running a business would. Then we're going to miss out on the vast majority of traffic and sales that we could get from the platform. And even shifting that mindset a little bit for people who are really on the artistic side of this. And they're saying, I love creating, I hate the business side of it. Even getting a basic understanding of the numbers. And Scott, you mentioned something a minute ago. You said, are we getting impressions, right? There's really 3 things that we need to focus on for any listing to figure out whether it's going to sell or not. The first is that listing getting impressions, right? If it's getting impressions, if it's being seen, whether it's ads or organically, is it getting clicks? And if people are then coming to the listing, are those resulting in sales? If not, then we really need to put that business hat on. And if we're getting impressions and not clicks, that tells us one thing. If we're getting clicks and not sales, that tells us another thing. But we need to be willing to look at the numbers just a little bit. And we're not talking about 40 hours a week or 80 hours a week here. But if you have a listing, or you're struggling to get sales across a bunch of different listings, having even just a basic understanding and a basic willingness to sit down and say, where is the problem? Is it my designs? Is it that I'm not getting shown where I should be getting shown, in which case we need to make some adjustments? Or is it that when people come to the listing, they just don't like what I have to sell, in which case maybe we need to change the listing, maybe we need to change the design, right? But working our way through that process, even just in a little bit of our time, is going to help us sell more, because we're focusing on this the way that a business person would. And quite honestly, on any platform, the business-minded people, the people who are looking at the numbers, the data nerds who are willing to sit down and analyze, are always going to have a leg up. So if you're struggling to get those first 100 sales, or you're struggling to figure out any individual listing, why it's not working, spending even just a few minutes a day sitting down, looking at the numbers, understanding what's bringing in traffic to those listings, and figuring out why that listing isn't selling, doing that will make a huge difference at the end of the day. Whether you consider this to be a business or not, Scott, it is a business, and we need to put that hat on from time to time.
Yeah. And like I said, we did a video on that, as far as, kind of how to pressure test, your products, and to see, like, is it the product? Is it the design? Is it your listings? Is it your images? Like, there's a way that we can do that. We'll actually link that up in the description as well, so you can go ahead and check that out. But I would say also, if you want like the roadmap that we have followed, and this, yes, we adapted it to Etsy, but it's one that we've been using for years for other e-commerce businesses and brands that we've started and sold even. But if you want that roadmap, just put in 100K in the comments, and we'll make sure that we get you a copy of that. It's free. It's a guide that kind of goes through our process, and really a holistic view of like what it really looks like to build a cohesive brand, which is a real business and can be used for Etsy. But then once you launch, it also builds assets in your business. One of them being email. Which we didn't go too deep into it, but the customers that you're receiving, once you get the sale, you then want to try to get those people to be part of your customer email base, so then you can send them emails. That's when you start to become profitable, outside of just Etsy. Okay. Yes, you're going to make the money through Etsy because you're probably going to drive them to Etsy, but you could drive them to your own Shopify store if you wanted to go down that route eventually. But building that customer list is huge. All right. And I mean, I did it as a case study, and I was talking about email, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to send a handful of emails, and I want to prove to people that email is working for Etsy shops. I did it for my wife's shop, and with a handful of emails, and we did over $1,100 that were from the share and save link, which, by the way, Etsy wants you to use, and they want you to drive traffic. And so that's another It's another asset that we own. And it's also a way that we can then take something that we might not have been profitable on. Maybe the ad wasn't as profitable as we would like on the front, but on the back, when we get someone to come in and be a repeat customer, now we didn't pay anything for that, right? And we actually made more because Etsy will give us a discount on our fees, right? So they're going to actually reward you. All right. So there's so much upside to the email and the customer list that you can build now. And I know some of you might be saying, Scott, wait, you can't do that. You can't build an email list from Etsy. It's frowned upon. It's frowned upon to just email your customers. You can't just do that, but you can get their permission. That's the big thing there. We have to get their permission. And there's ways that you can do that. One way is, well, in your message that confirms the sale, you can customize that and say, hey, thank you so much for your order. We appreciate you supporting a small business like ours. And we're in the process of putting your order together and we're going to get it shipped as soon as possible. But hey, before I let you go, I'd love to invite you to our VIP club. Go to xyzvip.com and you can become part of our VIP club where you get discounts on or pre-releases and discounts. And we do monthly giveaways and all this stuff. And then they go there and they sign up. They put their name and email address in. What did they do there? They gave you permission. All right. Now that's just one internal way you can do it. We talk about doing our fishbowl method, which is basically a giveaway. And from there, we're building a list outside of Etsy. And then we bring awareness to it, our products, and we send people emails that drive them over to our Etsy shop. Okay. I'm not going to get into all that. We've already covered a lot of that in the past. We'll probably do more, but we've done full lives and we've done full videos on that. And again, you want to subscribe to the channel so you can get access to all of that stuff. And when we release new stuff, you'll hear about it. So that's everything there as far as just giving a real look at what it's like for new Etsy sellers, especially the ones that are 100 sales or less. All right. And I know it can be frustrating, but hopefully that all helped you. Chris, do we have any questions that we want to address? I did want to do another little segment here. And I'm going to be covering 3 years of knowledge that I'm going to unpack. I'm going to try to do it in like 10 or 12 minutes. It's something I want to try here because people have been asking me, like, in the 3 years, what are the big key takeaways? I just covered a bunch of them, but it took me 45 minutes to explain it. I want to try to distill it down, but also give you some actionable things here in a short period of time. So we're going to cover that next. I've got like 7 things I want to share with you. Chris, any questions that we want to answer here before we move on?
Yeah, 2 that I want to do, kind of lightning round format, Scott. What do you consider to be a good conversion rate on Etsy? You and I were talking about driving traffic and sales. When we're getting people to the listing, what do we consider a good conversion rate? 1% plus. Ideally, I'd like to see a minimum of 2 to 3%. But if you're converting under 1%, we know you have a conversion problem. If you're converting over 3, 4, 5%, then you're probably good on the conversion rate side. We just need to drive more traffic if that's what we're looking at. And Beardo Gaming, who I haven't seen in the chat for a while, said, wait, you were just talking about turning visits into sales. How do you do that if that's the problem that you fall into? So if you're getting impressions and not visits, right? People are seeing your listing, but they're not clicking. It's probably going to be either your title or the main image that shows up, either your main image or the video, depending on what Etsy is showing for your listing. If you're getting visits and not sales, it's probably going to be those supporting listings, the supporting images, or something missing from your description. The other place where you could run into an issue, especially at the very beginning, is when Etsy's trying to figure out who to send to your listing. So if you're running some Etsy ads, the easiest way to take a look at that and see if it's a mismatch between what people are expecting when they get there and what they actually see when they look through the rest of your listing is just to take a look either at the beta search report or at the Etsy ads data to make sure that your listing matches with what Etsy thinks people are looking for when they type in that keyword. So if they're typing in wood and we sell wood, are we selling the thing that Etsy thinks that people want to buy? And if we're getting a lot of traffic from a keyword and it's not resulting in sales, that's probably our mismatch. So when we look at the keyword level, that's one other thing that we could look at. But it's usually going to be images or something missing from your description, right? People can't pick up your product. They can't turn it over. So if we're not giving all of the information that they need in order to make that purchase, it will result in lots of visits, but not a good conversion rate. So we want to double check what we're doing with that listing.
Yeah, I did want to answer. So Carolina Aerial Visuals, cool. I like aerial visuals. That's cool. Just wanted to know about okay, this is a good question. I want to answer this one here. So any advice on adding video to a non-physical product like a digital backdrop? I know videos in listings, but don't know how. Yeah. So if you are if you were selling like a digital background, then you're going to want to probably show it in use. So you'd probably want to put something in it, or you would want to show examples of how it would be used. So I think a great example there is, depending, again, like it sounds like aerial visual. So maybe you have aerial stuff, but you'd want to show it being used with however it's intended to being used. Same thing goes if it was a physical product. It'd be the same thing. If you're selling a shirt, you want to probably see it being either made. You'd want the process of it being made where you can see it, or you'd want to actually see it on the person and maybe just different angles, or maybe they're walking towards you, like something like that. You want to bring it to life, I guess is what I'm trying to say. You want to bring the product to life through that. And really, I don't think people are necessarily buying because of the video. I think the video is a great thing for a scroll stopper where it's going to get your attention. Now, more people are doing it, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't. So I am a fan of that.
Something, Scott, that popped up, I think last night, based on what the chat is telling us, Etsy seems to be testing right now, because I don't see it on my side. Some of the people in the chat did, some of the people in the chat didn't. If you don't have a video in that second slot,
yeah,
a lot of users are starting to report since last night that there's now a button there that says request a video from this seller.
Interesting.
Why would they be doing that? Well,
yeah,
because we know, based on Etsy's internal data and the data from other platforms, that videos get more clicks because it draws the eye, and you're potentially showing off more of that product, which can help you solve that problem of people not being able to pick it up, turn it over, see exactly what it is and how it's being used. So videos within Etsy are going to become more and more important. And we've had a bunch of people in the chat today saying, hey, like, this keeps showing up on all my listings. How do I get rid of it? The only way that we're aware of right now is to add a video into your listing. And it seems like Etsy is pushing that direction. I'm not seeing it on my side. I'm curious. Let us know inside the chat if you're seeing that button pop up when you just browse listings on Etsy. That could be a very interesting thing moving forward. And I guess the question then would be, Scott, what if I don't have the product? What if I'm a print on demand person? The easiest thing to do, if you don't physically have the product, take a bunch of your product images, just create a GIF or a video inside of something like Canva, add that to your listing to show off the different angles of the product. And you would, at the very least, satisfy kind of the basic level of that. And then on your top sellers, maybe actually get a sample and invest a little bit more time. But you don't necessarily have to do that just to get a listing video up. You can do that very easily just by adding in some of those photos into a video format in something like Canva.
I want to give a little shout out again to Carolina Aerial Visuals, because they got a great point. 175 watching, only 36 likes. Come on, y'all. I agree. I'm with Carolina Aerial Visuals. Come on, 175 and you haven't clicked like yet? Come on. What? It's not like worthy? Like, Chris, what's the problem? Why aren't we getting likes? People don't like us, I guess. All right.
Hey, I wanted to give a shout out to Art by Flynn, Scott. Said it's so simple. It took me so long to really understand the concept of running this as a business and focusing on what people are looking for when they come to the listing. Now I'm revamping all of my listings through Vela, and I already have a couple of sales this week. That is awesome. I love hearing that as we're starting to do a few small tweaks, a few small changes. And in the case of Art by Flynn, I think there's a lot of listings that, that they are working through. And so being able to see even results this quickly after making some of those changes is awesome.
Yeah, I haven't said this in a while. I don't know if I will again. I got a little bit of kickback on it, Chris. Oh, you took it. Yeah, there you go. Tick a little like button. I guess it's the same as liking it. It's just with a little bit more finesse. Oh, that's funny. All right. So, we good? Want to move on?
Yeah, we had one more, and then let's move on. Sherry Poppins in the house says, what is Vela? Vela is a way of bulk editing listings. It's actually the tool that we've used to move all of the Etsy listings over to Shopify and make sure that everything's synced up there. But one of the things that's kind of nice about it as a tool is that you can go in and it will show you all of your listings, and you can bulk edit. So if you have a bunch of things that would have similar photos, you want to add in things, or you want to be able to just click and drag a video in, you can do that inside of something like Velo. There's a bunch of bulk listing tools. It just makes your life a heck of a lot easier than going into every single listing in the Etsy backend, finding the right place and doing it. They make it a little bit easier to manage things in bulk. So if you're making a lot of changes to titles or images, something like that can be really useful in the short term.
Yeah. All right, cool. Let's get rocking and rolling here. I'm going to move on. And like I said, I am going to, I wanted to share that. So let's see here. Yeah. So like I said, I'm going to break this down. 3 years of Etsy knowledge. All right. So here we go. I'm going to see if I can do it. There's a little challenge I gave myself. So we're going to go ahead and see if we can, in fact, do this. All right. So I'm going to pull up this right here, and I've got them all listed out for you guys. All right. So let me go back here. So after 3 years of selling on Etsy, helping my wife, what have I learned? Are there some takeaways? And there are. There's actually 7. And I've actually listed them out. So I'm going to go and, I'm going to share this. And I've got my good friend, Mr. Chris Schaefer, here with me. And we are going to walk through these. The very first one is Etsy will reward you if you make sales. Good demand and good designs. What do I mean by all of that? Well, here's the deal. Etsy wants sales. I've said that before. I'm going to say it again, and I'm going to say it again, and I'm going to say it again. Etsy will reward you if you make sales. And I know the question is going to be, well, how do you make sales? We'll get into that. But if you have products that have good demand, there's a good chance you're going to make some sales. All right. Because you're getting enough traffic and you have the opportunity to get sales. A lot of times people are trying to get sales on products that just aren't being searched for, or people aren't buying on a regular basis. And then they wonder, why no sales? Not good demand. So we have to fix that problem. The other thing is sometimes people just think that their designs are awesome. And let me just say, we've looked at some of our old designs and it's like, you know what? They're not selling. Why? Maybe they weren't good enough. So you have to revise and you have to move on, but you have to also be real with yourself and say, are my designs good or do they need work? All right. And so sometimes getting clicks and then not getting sales, that can tell you why that's actually not the case, or you're not getting sales. So that's the first one. Okay. The very, very first one is Etsy will reward you when you make sales. The second one is product images. Okay. This is a big one. Okay. This can make or break your sales. And Chris, why is that? Why is a product image so important? Please, can you help me with this?
So 2 reasons. The first thing is, in order to get sales, you have to get traffic to the listing. The very first step in getting traffic is showing up. But when we show up, what makes somebody click? It's going to be the title and that thumbnail image. Once we get them to the listing, they can't pick up the product. They can't flip it over. They can't do any of those kinds of things. We have to show them as much of the product, all of the benefits, all of the features, all of the things that they'd be able to do if they could pick it up, turn it over, play with it a little bit in the store. The only way that we can do that, Scott, is with a little bit of text in the description, but more importantly, the images and potentially the product video, right? That's the only place where we can show all of those things off. So not only is it important for getting the clicks, but it's important for turning those clicks into sales.
Yeah, no, it's a big one. And I think if you are, struggling, and again, we've looked at this, images are the thing that's going to allow you to show your product in its realist form. I mean, it's an image, but you can make it come to life. So product images are extremely important. The third, okay. And again, these are things that I have learned over the years, and these 3 years for Etsy, but I've been learning this even when I was selling on Amazon for years. Reviews are so important. And if you are low on reviews, you should be focusing on reviews because that's going to help you convert. Just like Chris said, let's say you're getting clicks, but you're not getting sales. Well, the image did its job. It got the click, but why didn't you sell? Why didn't you convert that person into a sale? Now there's a bunch of different reasons, but one of them can be that you've only got one review and they're like a little skeptical, and someone else has a similar product. They're going to buy from the one that they trust more. So the review is super important. And if you increase your reviews, it's like anything, it's social proof. You're probably going to sell more. Think about yourself. I just recently did this. I was looking to get my shrubs trimmed. And so what do? I'm going to go and look at people's reviews and see what people said about them. Are they prompt? Did they do a good job? Are they friendly? Were they on time? All of these different things I'm going to be looking at. So it's extremely important that we look at the reviews. If you're struggling to get reviews, one simple way of doing this is reach out to your customers and say, hey, just checking in. We're a small business. We want to make sure you're happy. Could you let us know how we did? Go ahead and leave us a review on Etsy. Like, ask people and they'll probably leave a review. You'll probably get more than if you didn't. So definitely make sure that you're getting those reviews. The fourth, Etsy ads work great for customer acquisition, building a customer list. Chris, I know you love Etsy ads. I know you love ads in general. Why is this one a big one? And what do you think people need to understand about this here? Because I think this is something that gets overlooked. It's something that in the beginning, we didn't even really consider as powerful as it is. 3 years later, we know how powerful it is. What's your take on this?
Over and above anything else, Scott, Etsy ads give us the business data that we need to understand what's actually going on with the product. It can take 3, 6, 12 months to get this kind of data back on the organic side. What am I talking about here? What keywords are we showing up for? What does Etsy think that this listing is relevant for? When we're showing up, how many people are clicking over? And when they're clicking over, how many people are buying? We can get that data back very quickly and very inexpensively, relatively, right? Because we're investing a little bit of money to save a whole lot of time to understand that data. Once we have that data, it makes our lives a lot easier as a business owner to be able to say, hey, when I'm showing up for this, it's working. When I'm showing up for that, it's not. Let me rework my listing a little bit so that when I show up for this, I can be sure that I'm going to maximize the opportunity to sell. The other sneaky hidden thing here, Scott, and this is something I know you're a huge advocate of, is that we're not just spending money on Etsy ads to get that data back. The real reason that we're doing that is because we're going to get those clicks and sales up front. We're going to get those clicks and sales a lot faster. And if we want to get that holy grail of SEO traffic, right, the organic traffic, which is the majority of traffic on the site, then the way we can shortcut getting that traffic is by driving what Etsy wants from the very beginning, using something like Etsy ads at just a few dollars a day. Those early clicks, those early visits, and those early sales that come in from Etsy ads are going to pay dividends in the long term on the organic side of things.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's huge. And again, I think that's a huge takeaway that we've learned. And I think it really can help an Etsy seller in the beginning, but also as they're building out the business. All right. The fifth thing, which goes hand in hand with what you just said and what we just talked about, is email marketing helps add sales throughout the year. So you should be always building your list. And if you're brand new to Etsy, brand new to online business, email marketing is probably one of the most powerful things that I've learned over the years. And I've been doing this for over 20 years, built multiple businesses in the e-commerce, in digital products, everything, and even brick and mortar. And email marketing by far is going to be a very dependable asset for you. We recently did this for my wife's shop as a test because I was teaching it and I was like, I want to show you, I want to prove to you that email works. I sent out a handful of emails and generated over $1,100 in sales using the Etsy share and save link. So I know, in fact, that's where they came from. So you're probably asking though, well, you can't really email people anymore because Etsy's cracking down on that. They're technically not. What they are cracking down on is that you have to get permission. You can't just email them because they're a customer. You have to get their permission. So one way of doing this is just in the welcome message, make sure that you're putting something in there that would make them want to join your email list. Like something we use is a VIP list. So just create a landing page in Everbee. If you're not using Everbee, I definitely recommend it. You can go to brandcreators.com/Everbee and you can try it. But you can build a little landing page there that talks about your VIP club. People will enter their name and email address. They hit submit. And then from there, they become a subscriber that you can email on a regular basis, and they gave you permission. And Etsy is cool with that because they give you a share and save link to do just that. So you can drive traffic to the platform. So email marketing is a huge, huge thing. And I think if there was, again, 7 things that I could share over the last 3 years, this would be one of them. And that's why I included it here in the 7. All right. So number 6 is Q4. And I didn't know this until probably about, I would say, the second year. Q4 will be 60 to 80% of your sales. Okay. It's just the way it is. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't get sales throughout the year. It doesn't mean that you can't get sales outside of Etsy, but Etsy primarily, the busiest time, the most traffic, the most transactions is going to be Q4. And I've interviewed, $1 million sellers telling you the same thing. Okay. So what do we do with this? Well, number one, plan for it. Okay. What I mean by that is get everything kind of built and ready for Q4 and prepare yourself. Because if you're getting sales like my wife was, you're probably going to be pretty stressed out. You might even question if you want to do it again. True story. So it's something that you can't deny because it is what it is. You have to plan for it and you have to decide, do you want to go as hard as you can in Q4? Because that will be the question. Right now, you might be saying, but Scott, I'm not even getting any sales, or I'm getting very little sales. I can keep up with it. Wait until you have, 100, maybe 200 sales a day. And you're like, I don't know how I'm going to keep up with this. Then your mind starts to change. And then you're like, I need a break. And then, so what we do, because this is a little side thing for my wife, is you take a little time off, and the rest of the year, you just kind of keep things rolling. You plan, you keep adding things into the inventory. It's more manageable. But then when you start ramping up, and I'm saying ramping up like July is when you're going to start ramping things up, get ready. Okay. Because Q4 is coming. But that was a big eye opener for me, is that it's so heavy for Q4, but that's okay as long as you do plan for it, which I definitely recommend that you do. All right. The last one is staying focused on creating products for your customer. Let me say that one more time. Staying focused. Like, you have to, okay? Because there's going to be a lot of shiny objects. We're all getting excited, right? This is great. We can sell this. We can do this product. We can do this design. We can do that, right? Or we can do this new hack, or we can go to Instagram and we can start a following over there. Or we can go over here to Pinterest and we can go over here. Like, you have to put the blinders on, because there's probably enough stuff that you can do to keep you busy on just focusing on Etsy for the first 12 months. Like, that's all that you should worry about, and optimizing that, and really sitting down and planning out your roadmap to build products for your customers. Okay. Create more products for those customers to buy, because going back to what I talked about earlier, when you build that email list, well, now you can sell more things to that same customer. And they might buy 2 things, 3 things, 5 things. Okay. But we have to have those products there in order for them to be able to buy them. So your focus is really product research. That's going to be primarily what you're going to be doing throughout the year. Designing great products, creating great products, adding the listings, and launching products. And, well, using your email list to continue to bring in traffic to your shop. And that's really it. That's all you should be focusing on for the first 12 months, maybe even 2 years. Okay. And just keep focusing on that and keeping that flywheel moving. All right. So those are the 7 things that I wanted to share with you from what I have learned over the last 3 years of helping my wife build her Etsy shop. Chris, was there any questions on that, or anything else I left out, or is there anything that we need to address?
Sherry Poppins says, number 7 is the absolute hardest. And Scott, I think you and I both identify as ADD riddled squirrels. At least I do. And I think the thing that makes that easier is remembering that if we can focus on one customer, it makes our lives a heck of a lot easier. It's very easy to get distracted by sell this, make $10,000 a month, right? You're like, well, yeah, I'd like an extra 10 grand this month. Why? I'll just launch an avocado mug. Well, guess what? Maybe you will, maybe you won't. But if it has nothing to do with your customer base, you lose those guaranteed sales. If we can figure out, okay, let's say we sell fishing stuff. Maybe I create a fishing avocado mug instead of a dancing avocado mug, right?
Sure.
That ties back into my market. There's a potential I can sell that to my existing customers and do that. I think, Scott, number 7 there And that mindset shift of staying focused on creating products for your customer is actually liberating. And this is a thing I think a lot of people miss out on because they get worried that they can't create all of the things that they want to be able to create. When you're
Mhm.
sitting down and saying, instead of how, I'm going to go create this, how do I create this for my customer, for my niche, for the people
Mhm.
who already buy my stuff? It actually gets those creative juices flowing because you have to figure out, instead of being an also ran or just jumping on a trend, how can I apply this to my niche? It gets those creative juices really flowing, gets you focused, and will ensure that you're creating a product that your customer actually cares about at the end of the day, and not just something that might have the potential to sell and might not. And so I think if people can learn lesson number 7, and Scott, quite honestly, lesson number 1 here, if you have good demand and good designs, those two things really go together. If you
Totally.
can learn just those 2 lessons, that's going to get you a long way there. And then 2 through 6 here really is all about the optimization process, right? How do we get the most out of this without having to worry about anything else? But if we can master 1 and 7, then we can focus on the other 5.
Yeah, yeah. All right, cool. We got other things we want to cover here. I did want to address this though. Is it a good idea to run a Facebook giveaway ad, like, share, and subscribe? Okay, so we do use Facebook to run a giveaway. We call it our fishbowl method, and that's how we have built our list. Primarily, we do have customers that we have been able to get them to come over by joining the VIP club and all that stuff, but primarily it's been through Facebook. And what we do is we put a landing page in place before we would send them to the shop. So you're putting a little bit of a wall there where they would have to enter their name and email address to get through. And that's what they call a landing page. And you can build that right in Everbee email, which we're a huge fan of. And if, by the way, if you want to check it out for free, but you can upgrade to the growth plan, and you can go to brandcreators.com/Everbee. Little shameless plug there. You will buy us a cup of coffee if you go through that link. But I would not drive direct traffic from Facebook to my Etsy shop because you got one shot at it. One shot. Yes, they're trackable. So if they go on over there and they buy later, there is a chance that they would come back, but there's no way for you to follow up to have them come back. The difference with an email is you can capture the name and email address immediately. A thank you page would pop up and say, go visit our Etsy shop here. And then that would be your link. That would be automatically the same one that you would have given. But the difference is now they're also on your email list that you can follow up with in a day or a week, every month, every week. Like, you can just do that on a regular basis. So that's what I would recommend there for that. All right, Chris, I know we got a few more questions there. You want to address those? You want to move on?
One quick follow-up on that. Christine Herzog said, what if you want to capture their email and have them follow up with you on social media, right? Focus on getting the email address. It's the only traffic channel you actually control. You may remember a few years ago, like, everybody was talking about building Facebook pages and that was going to be the greatest thing. That makes me feel old at this point because it was like 10 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, overnight, Facebook was like, if you're a page, we're not going to show your thing to anybody anymore. It doesn't matter if you have 1 million people. Five of them. Not 5 million, not 5,000, not 5%, just 5. 5 people are going to see it, right? With an email list, as long as we're writing good subject lines and we're not being overly promotional in our emails, we're not putting in 100 images, we're going to get shown to the vast majority of those people. And there's a solid return on investment there that we know, somewhere between 38 and 72 to 1, depending on who's sending the emails and which survey you're looking at, right? But there's nothing wrong with sending them over to your Facebook group or Facebook page or X or
No, not at
Instagram
all.
after you have them on the email list. But the number one thing you should be focused on in terms of capturing customers outside of a platform is that email address. Is the highest return on investment marketing activity. So if we focus there first, then anything else we get is a nice little bonus.
Yeah, I'll say this too. I should have mentioned this earlier. So, we have a free guide. It's our email playbook. It goes through this strategy. So I would definitely make sure that you grab a copy of that. If you want a copy, just put email in the comments and we'll send you a copy. But like you said, Chris, once they enter their name and email address, yes, we would want them to go to our other places because that's another place for us to be seen, right? Maybe they're not seeing their email that day, but they're on social. So you have a Facebook page or a Facebook group. With the giveaway model that we run, the fishbowl method, as we call it, you're using it as a giveaway. And on the thank you page, you incentivize them to visit some of your other properties if you have them, and they will get more entries. So that's another little thing that we do to get some free exposure to our list building efforts. So if you'd like a copy of that, like I said, just drop email in the comments and we'll make sure that we get you a copy of that. All right, Chris. I know we got a few more questions. If you guys have any more questions, drop them in there. But I'm going to go ahead and we are going to keep rocking and rolling here. And I'm trying to see what else was up here in the docket. Okay. Yeah, there it is. I got it. This is a good one. And Chris, I think you're going to lead the charge on this one, but let me cue this baby up. So Chris shared with me probably one of the, and I got to be careful here. One of the, I don't know, the words I'm looking for is like stupid, dumb, worst. I don't know if there's a better word to describe this. I haven't found it, but those are the ones that come to mind. Where there's experts, or maybe it's an expert, I don't want to say everyone, is saying to basically delete, get rid of your Etsy shop if you have less than 45 sales. Chris, it looks like I lost Chris. I guess I lost Chris, so I'm gonna have to do this one on my own. I'm trying to see if he is in fact there yet. So he loses power there in Colombia. I think we gotta see what's going on over there. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna have to do this one myself, I guess. Let me pull it up here. This is what happens when you do this stuff live, guys. Yeah, there we go. Cool. I like that shot. All right. So yes, the worst Etsy advice that I have seen, and this was sent to me from Chris, who he found in a Facebook group. And this is what it said. Just heard on a podcast hosted by one of those Etsy experts that if you don't have any sales within your first 45 days on the platform, that you should give up and start a new shop. Has anyone here had no sales, started a new shop, and had success? Well, number one, I first off just want to say, I believe that is the dumbest advice I've ever heard. Okay. Because Etsy is not going to penalize you because you have a shop that hasn't had any sales. There have been plenty of shops that have, well, they started 5 years ago and they didn't do anything. They had like 50 sales and then just let it sit. And then, I don't know, 5 years later, they come back and they start new, and they might even have a new niche. They might even have a new direction. And they're like, you know what? We're going to go ahead and start selling again. And they've had success. I actually recently on one of our Etsy shop audits, I interviewed someone there as we were doing the audit. And she was telling me, I think I started this, I think she said 2013. And then she started it back up in 2020 and she's doing pretty good. So I don't believe that we should be giving advice for people to open a shop, and then if it doesn't get sales in 45 days, kill it, start a new shop. Do you think that that's what Etsy wants? And I guess the logic here is that Etsy might look at this as, well, it's been optimized poorly, so because of that, we're going to give it a bad score. That's not the way that it works. Pretty much, Etsy doesn't care so much about the shop as much as they do about the listing. So the listings are their own entity. They're their own thing. Now, is there some effect from a shop that's doing really well, that's proven track record, that's got a star seller? Yeah, there's probably something there. But a lot of times it takes months to achieve that. So the way that I look at it is, yeah, your shop, you might have started it in one niche and then you want to pivot to another one. So just pivot it. And then start letting Etsy know who you're starting to serve. But to open a shop and delete, so what happens if you open a shop and in 45 days you don't get any sales, or you get 5 sales or less, and then you delete your shop? You open a new one and the same thing happens. You delete another one and then you delete another one and then you delete another one. Don't you think Etsy's going to look at that like, why do you keep opening shops and closing shops? Right? Like, that's going to draw a red flag. So I think that is the worst advice. I don't agree with it. And if someone has any proof, please leave that in the comments so we can, so we can see it. And if that is the case, I'd like to talk to Etsy about that and be like, do you think, is that good advice? Do you think that Etsy would give that advice? I think that's another little filter we should run. Do you think Etsy would say, hey, listen, your shop hasn't had sales in 45 days, or it's had 3 sales. We don't feel it's been optimized properly. So we're going to recommend that you delete your shop, you start a brand new one up, and then we'll give you another shot. Do you really think, guys, let me know in the comments. Do you think that that's true? Like, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I think that's the dumbest thing I've heard. And I know some people be like, well, why are you saying it's dumb? It just might, be something that someone felt was the good thing to, I don't know. I do not believe that we should be giving advice like that, because I know people are going to be listening to an expert like this and they're going to be doing it. That's what I think experts don't realize is, and I realize this, there's things that I am saying that you are going to try. And I want to make sure that I am as honest and as transparent. And if I have not done it, I am not going to recommend it. So I have never started a shop and had low sales and then deleted it or heard of anybody else. That's the other thing. Let's say it wasn't me, it was someone else. If I had someone else that did it and they're like, Scott, it was amazing, I did it, and all of a sudden I had all these sales. What they probably also probably didn't realize was they probably just picked a better product and had more demand, and they probably optimized that listing better. Probably, right? So be careful on the advice that you are taking from Etsy experts and gurus. I've said this before. I do not look at myself as an Etsy expert or a guru. I look at it as someone that has just done some things and I'm just reporting back, right? I've never heard of that. I've never tried that. I've never heard of anybody trying it. So I can't recommend it. I think it's silly. I would not do it. I would say just focus on your shop, focus on getting good products that have good demand, take care of your customers, and just put your head down and focus. And you'll probably get some sales, and you'll probably start building a little successful shop. So that's my advice. You can do it. You don't have to do it. You can listen to those other guys or the girls, whichever. But that's my advice. I see Chris is back. Dude, Chris, I had to take you out of the conversation, bud.
So this piece of advice, like a lot of the terrible advice that we see in the Etsy ecosystem, it does come from a little tiny grain of truth layered with a complete misunderstanding of how Etsy works, right? The little tiny grain of truth here is just like with the new listing bump that you get on Etsy, right? When a new listing comes out, because Etsy doesn't know exactly how it stacks up against the competition, they give it a little bit of a boost to make sure it gets in front of some people. They do give you a little bit of a boost when you first create your shop in order to establish what they refer to as the shop score, right? And that could run out somewhere in the first month and a half to 2 months as you start to get traffic. But where this really becomes a silly thing to think about, and where I think it's terrible advice, is the vast majority of sales, like 98% of sales, until you have a sales history, are not coming from your shop. They're coming from your listings. And so where the misunderstanding in this comes in is, if you haven't gotten sales in 45 or 60 days, it has nothing to do with your shop and everything to do with the products that you picked and the listings. Right? It's not that you don't have good SEO or good luck. It's that you probably picked some crappy products that don't have any demand, right? If you're not getting views and you're not getting sales in that time frame, then we need to look at why. And it's not because Etsy didn't give the papal blessing to your Etsy shop page. It's because you either missed something in the product research process, you didn't pick a niche, or there's just no demand for your products. Rather than closing that shop and opening a new shop where you open yourselves up to, maybe you didn't pay 20 cents on that, right? And now we're going to open a new shop. And once we get that new shop open, Etsy's going to shut everything down because we have a 20-cent balance, right? That's already happened to some people. So rather than saying, oh, the problem was the shop, we need to figure out what the problem actually is. And that little grain of truth comes back to the listing. This is a product and listing problem, not a shop problem. And if you have a product and listing problem in this shop and you don't learn the lesson, then opening a new shop doesn't solve that problem for you. Guess what? no one cares about your shop right away, right? The only thing they care about is the listing that's put in front of them as a customer. And if we can't get our listings in front of people, it's not about what's happening on the shop page. It's about what happens on the listing page. So if we can double check that we have demand and that we're only creating quality listings for products that have demand, that's going to get us the rest of the way there. Shutting down a shop, moving things around, not learning our lessons, that's just terrible all around advice.
Perfect. Yeah, I wanted to throw this in here. Sherry Poppins. It's like telling your child that if they fall off their bike 3 times, give up on it. Well, you got to get a new bike. It's the bike's fault, right? Come on. Yeah, I like it. Elisha says, nope, it's dumb. And then Fatty Pancake, rarely does anything start off successful and perfect. That's why you have to work to fine tune things. I agree. Yep. Get back on that bike and keep trying. I like it. Yeah, it's bad advice. All right. We're going to wrap up with another crazy thing that I was notified of, and Chris and I are going to investigate this, and we're going to see if there's any truth to this. So let's check it out here. Chris, you got it ready to share? Can you locate that before I tee this baby up?
That thing.
We're using the word thing a lot today.
Yeah, we are.
Just being very secretive. So you just give me the green light so I know that you're ready, and then we will.
Yeah, go for it. I have the screenshots we were talking about pulled up already. So if there was something else you wanted to show.
Well, the website itself. Did you want to pull that up and share that?
I have that pulled up on my side.
Okay, that's what I mainly want to get into. Okay, cool. All right, so the word on the street is Etsy has some competition. There's another platform that was brought to my attention, which one of our audience members here messaged me and basically said, hey, what about this? What about this new competitor? And I had never heard of this company until now, and we are going to look into it. So Chris, can you pull up the new competitor, the new kids on the block that are trying to compete with Etsy? Unmute yourself. Can you make that screen? Can you make that screen a little bit fatter for me?
A little bit tighter. You want to see that right there?
Yeah, I want to see that. There you go.
We got a lot of people guessing what it is, and a lot of other people saying, "What the heck is it?" So, this has been something they've been around for a few years now. It looks like they're finally starting to get a little bit of traction. But Scott, the question we've gotten a bunch of times from our audience already is like, is this an Etsy killer? Is this the place to go? Especially if you are handmade, because it is a new handmade marketplace called Go Imagine. And we've gotten a lot of questions over the last few days because some other people have started to talk about this, and our audience had asked us, hey, like, what's going on? Is this something that's viable? Should I be moving everything over there immediately? What are your thoughts? So we wanted to dive in and chat about it just a little bit here this morning.
Yeah. So I guess the big question is, like, who is this for? Can pod sellers sell on here? Is it strictly handmade? How much traffic do they actually have? Is it worth us putting our stuff on there if we can? So I guess there's some unanswered questions. Let's start with this. How much traffic right now is this? And well, let's start here. How old has this company been around? I guess that's the first question.
So the first mention I see of them, they did a crowdfunding campaign back in 2020, and they've been growing kind of slowly and steadily ever since. So they've been around for like 3.5 years at this point, Scott. They're not, this is not like somebody just spun up a website last week. They have been around for a little while now.
Okay. All right. So they've been around a little while. I've never heard of them. What kind of traffic numbers are we looking at here? I guess, can we compare like these guys to Etsy and see where we're at? And then we'll see next, like, who can sell on this? Like, can we sell pod products, the digital products, all of those things?
Yeah, so we have a tool that you and I have used for quite a while called Uber Suggest, and they do traffic estimates, right? So these are not exact numbers, but we just wanted to compare apples to apples. What do they think that this is getting versus what Etsy is getting? And Scott, I'm going to flip over. Let me see if you can see that right now. So what we're looking here, this is goimagine.com run through Uber Suggest. Again, we're not saying that this is the exact number, and we're only looking at organic traffic here, but we wanted to do a little bit of an apples to apples comparison, right? And so according to Uber Suggest, the entire website right now is getting 11,500. Let's just give them the benefit of the doubt, round that number up a little bit. Organic monthly visits. So, Scott, what are your thoughts on that in terms of an overall traffic number before we look at what Etsy looks like when we're looking kind of in an apples to apples comparison?
Yeah, we're looking at really, really small. I mean, I've had some small blogs that I've created, content sites that have gotten that much traffic and more. I've got some that have gotten upwards of 60 to 70,000 monthly visitors. So really small, like tiny. And I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, I want to get like, I don't know, I want to get in front of like hundreds of thousands. And here it's like, my niche, how many would be interested out of the 11,478? But yeah, that's really small. And I'm curious, if you run Etsy through this, what would that look like?
So just in terms of like an overall percentage, what do you think this is? Is this a substantial percentage or is it like 1%? Like what would you guess?
A half a percent, not even a half a percent. I don't know. Not even a half a percent. I mean, it's got to be, yeah, there you go. So 357,782,951. And by the way, even if we say this is just their organic traffic, Uber Suggest, again, it's a traffic tool. It allows you to kind of see the traffic, but it's an estimator. It's not like 100% accurate. We've always found that it's low. So you would say then, well, the other site was low too. Let's call the other one 20,000. And let's say that this one will round up to 400 million. Okay. So Chris, I don't know what the math is on that. Is there how many decimal, like in the fraction of a percent?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking, somebody corrects my math here, but I think it's 3 zeros and then a 3, right? So it's 0.0003. So 3/100ths of a percent,
Yeah.
or 3/10 of a percent or 3/100ths of a percent. Somebody correct my math in the chat. But we're talking, a rounding error in terms of the organic traffic here. Now, Scott, that raises the question, at least on my side here, does that matter? Like, if we're looking, obviously, not everybody is Etsy. And if we compared Amazon to Etsy in the same way, it would probably look similar.
Yeah.
Right. So what are your thoughts in terms of having a viable alternative if your products make sense there? Obviously, they haven't been around nearly as long. Etsy's been around, 12, 13 years longer than Go Imagine has. So outside of the initial demand, would you consider, if your products were a fit, moving to a platform or including another platform like Go Imagine right now? Or is there a better use of your time, energy, and effort in your mind?
Yeah. I think if someone's going to move over, you would have to do the research, and I don't know how you would do that yet. You'd have to do the research on the platform, see if your niche is popular there, and to see, is there enough upside. Years ago, when we were selling on Amazon, Walmart was the next channel that you were thinking about going to. But a lot of times it wasn't anywhere near what Amazon was. So it didn't even make sense for us to list our products there. So would it make more sense for you to just upload your stuff on your own site and start that direction? Maybe. But we're also looking at an established platform that potentially has buyers there. And if you're only looking at selling like handmade goods, which we're going to talk about next, like what can you sell? It might make sense for you. Like maybe you sell something that's $200 and you only want to sell one a week, right? Or one every 3 days. Maybe there's enough traffic there for that. Maybe there's the right audience there for that. So in that case, yeah, maybe it makes sense. But right now, I don't think it's going to compete with Etsy at all. I mean, if it is, it's like a fraction of a percent, because Etsy is allowing more types of products now, which who knows, maybe this company will in the future as well. We don't know. But let me ask you this. And I know you did digging through some of the paperwork. What can we sell on there? Like, what are we able to sell?
So The place where I will start to give them a lot of credit is it's almost like their terms of service were written by a human being and not Lawyer Robot 4000. They are very clear about what you can and can't sell on the platform. And Scott, they give you examples of things that might be edge cases. So one of their things is like, we have a PG-13 content policy, right? And they give you examples of what would be PG-13 and what wouldn't, so that you actually understand what the rules are. But their basis is that this is a handmade only platform. And if you use any sort of production assistance, and the example here that they give is somebody who takes photos or paints and you need somebody to make a print for you, that's okay as long as you are shipping it as the artist. What they don't allow you to do is use any third-party shipping. So that would take out anything that's print on demand. They also have some very interesting and very clear, quite honestly, rules around artificial intelligence. It appears that their rules allow you to use it as part of a design, but that they don't want you selling anything that was directly generated by AI. So they don't have, even if you have printing capability in your house, they don't want you going to Midjourney, creating a piece of wall art, and then printing that at your house. That's a no-no on the platform, but they do appear to allow you to use some, pieces of AI if you're creating a more overall design. But overall, what they're looking for is to take that section of handmade. So not only are they up against Etsy, but they're also up against Amazon and eBay and some of those other kinds of websites as well. It's a very interesting approach.
Can you
There's
pull it up,
definitely,
Chris? Can we kind of
yeah,
thumb through it so people can actually see, so we can kind of work through it?
yeah. So let me hit the button here.
There we
Right.
go.
So
Yeah.
it's a very interesting approach, right? It's what Etsy was back when they first started, just for local and handmade artists. Now, based on the initial digging here, there is a lot of opportunity. And one of the things that their founders keep saying is it's really easy to rank because there's not that many sellers on there right now, right?
Mhm.
Like let's take that with a grain of salt, but that is cool. If we can get in early and this is going to turn into something, then we have the chance to be at the ground floor. The question is, what is the return on investment for our time right now, and is this the best place to invest it, as opposed to doubling down on what we're doing on Etsy or creating our own website, right?
Yeah, very similar. They got the heart, that you can heart something. They have the free shipping button, a little bit of a different green, obviously. Then they have a creator there. That's interesting. So they're kind of featuring. I wonder if they have ads on here. They're running
That is something
ads.
I have not seen yet.
Can you click into one of the listings and kind of just take a look at it?
Yeah, let me pull up one of the categories just to see if they have something that
Oh,
pops
okay.
out specifically as an ad,
Okay. So
but
they
it
have some
doesn't look like
filters
at
to
this point
search. Okay.
that they're doing that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's just jump in and look at this peppermint moisturizing soap bar, right? Now, to me, Scott, this looks very similar to a Shopify site,
Yeah,
right?
it
Like
does.
it almost has that exact same
It does.
layout that you would
Yep.
expect to see
Yep.
on a Shopify site, right?
Yep. Very, very much. So there's some reviews right there, I think, right? No, that's a flash sale. Meet the maker, bar site. So all of your product description, all of that stuff. You can add to cart, you can heart it, you can share it. Okay. But yeah, so if you go back though, Chris, we didn't really identify, is there any ads or anything running? Do they give the opportunity to even run ads? It doesn't look like they
Yeah,
do.
there does not appear to be.
No. So that's another thing, right? So then it is going to be strictly all organic, which again is fine. But then if they have a ranking system in there, it's going to probably be based off of sales, and conversions, just like everything else. And if that's the case, then you have to almost in a sense get your sales yourself, and do the best that you can. It's not just going to be like, oh, I'm going to, use SEO. You're going to have to figure out a way. So you have to build an email list, drive your traffic over there, kind of get an influx of sales and those types of things. So yeah, I don't look at this as a competitor at all, to be honest. I mean, okay, I say at all. It is at a very, very small level. I don't believe that people listening or watching this right now are probably going to be thinking to themselves, like, this is going to be an opportunity for me. Because a lot of people, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, let me know in the comments too. Are you selling primarily pod, print on demand? Is it digital, or is it completely handmade? I'm just curious. I'm just trying to see where we're at with the audience. But yeah, so Chris, is this something that Etsy sellers should be considering? I mean, I guess it does come down to, though, like, does your product align with this platform? And I don't know. I mean, I'd like to know if anybody's had success on this platform.
Yeah, I think the other thing right now, it is currently limited to US sellers, right? And they have been in the seller acquisition phase, because when you're building a new platform, you have two problems you have to solve, right? You have to solve getting the traffic and the buyer side. But to get the traffic, you have to have stuff to sell them, so you have to get the seller side, right? And so what they've been really focused on since they launched is getting some sellers onto the platform. They've now done that. Obviously, now that we're talking about, there's going to be a lot more people going to look at it. The more things they can get added, the more chance there is that if you are a fit for their platform, that they'll start to be able to do the buyer acquisition side of this, right? So if you're able to qualify for this right now, meaning you're selling a handmade product and you are in the US, take a look at it. The thing I would not think that this does for you, Scott, is this does not replace Etsy, right? Because they're not necessarily going to be bringing you traffic. But if you don't want to have your own website, you're looking for another marketplace to bring on, and you qualify, maybe take a look at it. Just take it with that big grain of salt that you're going to get kind of a handful of sales through there right now at most. And Scott, one thing that was kind of interesting here to me, because the debate that I was having in my head is, well, if I'm going to add something to
Yeah.
Etsy as somebody who's selling on Etsy, if I'm going to add a platform, do I double down and create my own website? And this is something I think that they're doing that's kind of interesting, in that, just like Shopify or whatever else, and even Etsy has the ability to build your own website using
Yeah.
the Etsy platform, right? Go Imagine has a very similar program that is priced, I believe, around $10 a month, as opposed to the between $19 and $40, depending on where you
Mhm.
are and what plan you pick on something like Shopify.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on giving the platform a go, because they're also giving you that ability? So you would have the website, you can start to learn some of those kinds of things, and then you're just listed on the site as a result of that.
Yeah.
Is
So,
that the safer way to approach this right now,
yeah,
or
I
the
mean,
smarter way to approach this?
yeah, I mean, I think as far as like building your own website, it probably takes the learning curve down a little bit, but then you're still building something that's on another platform. Now, can you still drive your traffic there? That because you're gonna have to drive traffic to a Shopify store anyway, right? Or does it make more sense to just start the Shopify thing? And then if you're going to drive your own traffic anyway, why wouldn't you just do that? Because I think that has a longer shelf life, unless this platform blew up. Fatty Pancake had made a really good comment here and said, think about it this way: people sign up for Etsy in its infancy and look at it now. Better to get into something early, and if it blows up in 5 to 10 years, you're in a good position on the platform. I agree with that. But again, first thing is, can you sell on there today with your products? If you can, yeah, maybe you list a handful and see what kind of traffic you're getting. What kind of stats do you get? What kind of reporting? What kind of opportunities do you get to promote? Can you run, special sales? Do they have countdowns? Like, do they have certain things built in? Do they have internal email triggers like Etsy gives you? Like, what do they have available to help you promote your products on their platform? I think that would be an interesting thing. And if any of you do this, report back to us. You can email us, support@brandcreators.com. Let us know how it went. Like, let us know some of the behind the scenes stuff, and maybe we can do an episode on it. So yeah, I would definitely
Yeah,
say
and
do that.
Fatty Pancake says you have to drive your own traffic for sure right now. And so I get the argument that, well, if you were on Etsy at the beginning, you'd be in a much better place, right? And
Yeah.
Scott, what is that famous Chinese proverb that you quote all the time about, like, a tree? Like, what is that proverb?
Yeah. If I remember correctly, the best time to plant a tree, or no, no, wait. Now you put me on the spot.
Yeah,
Um,
I,
the best time
I
to
got it.
plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is now, something like that.
Yeah. Right. And so the problem that we have is the time and mental bandwidth that is involved in bringing on another platform, right? We have to make sure that everything we're putting over there is complying with their rules. There appears to be like that $5 to $10 a month subscription that's associated with it. And so the question that business owners need to have is it better to be in now and be paying that subscription? Or am I going to get a higher return on investment for my business right now, today, and over the next few years by starting my own website and mastering driving traffic? And I think, to me, if I'm going to have to drive a big portion of that traffic to make it
Yeah.
worth my while anyway, I'd rather own that traffic than be
Yeah.
pointing it to yet another platform. And I don't want anybody to take this the wrong way and think that we're just sitting here bashing on Go Imagine and that we don't want them to succeed.
No, not at
Right?
all.
I do. The place that we are looking at this from is as a business owner, and where you and I think, would invest our time, energy, and effort right now. Now, is this something that is on our radar? Absolutely. We're standing here talking about it. And if we start to see that their traffic numbers are increasing, we start to see that there's more sales coming through that platform.
Yeah.
Does it become an appealing alternative if we meet the requirements of the platform? Potentially, right? But we have to weigh that, just like we have to weigh adding more products, or we have
Yeah.
to weigh adding in the email list, right? Where are we in our journey and what makes the most sense? If you have somebody that can deal with that for you, and it's worth the $5 to $10 a month just to be on there right now, to say you were one of the first 400 sellers or whatever it is on Go Imagine, then go for it. But if you're looking at this to say, hey, Etsy's given me the runaround, I want to make sure that I have a solid business foundation. What's the next move? For me right now, that's not to go to another marketplace. That's not to go to somewhere like Go Imagine. That would be to build your own site, because that is a piece of ground that you own and control, just like the email list, Scott. And that's why we talk about, that's kind of part of the phase one when we're in the Etsy platform and we're building our business, right? We want to have that email list in case something goes crazy. I would always want to have that backup of my own website. So if we're looking at order of operations, it would be get started somewhere where there's demand, like Etsy, and then build our own piece of real estate. Once we have that, we've mastered driving traffic. That's when it's time for us to start looking at other marketplaces, at least in my mind. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a great alternative, and it's a great test. But if I had the choice between that and Shopify, I'm going to probably go Shopify, because I'm going to drive my own traffic anyway. And Art by Flint says, I'll be your guinea pig and put some of my artwork, my original artwork on there. Perfect. Yeah. Put it on there. Worst case, you might spend a couple of hours putting it up, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But that would be cool. That we could get a little report on that. All right, cool. My opinion, I don't think they will be treating the platform as an e-commerce place with a lot of common functions we see, discounts, email triggers, etc. I think they are focusing on one-of-a-kind stuff, and maybe that's the case. So we'll have to wait and see. I'm not quite sure. Again, like I said, that this is. I know it's not a direct threat to Etsy, and I don't think that it's a huge opportunity for most Etsy sellers right now. Again, I'm kind of like putting that statement out there as like, I know what primarily Etsy is it consists of, but I'm pretty sure that people that are making one-off stuff is a lot less nowadays than it used to be, with print on demand, digital products, and in some cases drop shipping. So with that all being said, Chris, is there any other questions that we needed to address before we wrap up this almost 2-hour live stream?
Somebody asked, what are your thoughts on a shop that has a 2.6% conversion rate, but not getting enough sales? So if you're converting well, but you don't have the volume that you want, then you have a traffic problem, right? That's a great problem to have, because we can do things like double check the demand for our products, turn on Etsy ads, and then go from there. So if you're converting well, but you're not selling as much as you want to, then you probably have a traffic problem. If you're getting lots of traffic and you're not converting well, then you have a conversion rate problem, right? So you have a quality problem. Now we just got to get more people in, see if that conversion rate holds, and go from there.
Yeah. I do have a little question favor, I guess, I'd throw out here for you guys. Chris and I are we want to do like short little video. I don't mean like shorts, but like 5-minute videos answering a question that's submitted by our audience, you. If you have any questions, like just direct questions, we did one last week. I believe it was like, should I add my tags or my keywords in my title, in my tags, like something like that. If you guys have any questions that you want us to answer that are pretty direct, that we can give you our thoughts, our opinions, whatever, drop them in the comments. We may feature your question in an upcoming video. So if you would do that, that would be awesome. The other thing is, if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. if you've been watching, thank you so much for being here. Make sure that you like this. This gives us a little bit of love in the YouTube algorithm, and it helps us reach more people. And then the other thing I wanted to bring up is tomorrow, depending on when you're watching this, our Etsy shop audits, they air on Thursday. Okay. Every Thursday we put out a new Etsy shop audit. That's where we do a deep dive on an Etsy shop, and with the owner there. We did one last week. It was really, really good. I mean, all of them, we've done over 19 of them now. Tomorrow, I believe, will be the 20th. So make sure you subscribe and you'll get access to those when they are released, which is usually 9:30 a.m. Thursday mornings. But if you want to hang out with us behind the scenes while we record them, we usually record 3 at a time, and we do them about 6 weeks in advance. You can join our Backstage Pass Club. It's under $10 a month, and you get to be on a live like this as Chris and I go through 3 Etsy shop audits where we dig into someone's business. We open up a lot of times their dashboard. We dig into their analytics. We dig into their Etsy ads, conversion issues, like whatever, products, product research, all of it. And if you would like to sit in on them, be a fly on the wall, if you will, but you can still ask questions, then just, you can either hit the join button on the YouTube where it says subscribe, or join, click join, and you'll be prompted with the information there and what it entails. Or you can just go to brandcreators.com/club. If you go to brandcreators.com/club, you can directly go there and sign up. And we will probably be doing our next one in about 2.5 to 3 weeks. We always kind of let people know about a week ahead of time. And we will be also reaching out to, so if you've already submitted your shop to be audited and you're part of the Backstage Pass Club, look for an email over the next week, because we'll probably be reaching out to you, because we are going to be selecting our next 3. So with that all being said, I know that was a lot. But if you want to be more part of our Backstage Pass Club, just go there. You can get the information. You can join us. Like I said, under $10 a month. And then the last thing is, well, we show up here every Wednesday, Chris and I, and we usually go for about 60, 90, sometimes 2 hours. But you probably have noticed we answer a lot of questions too. But sometimes these are long. So you can always watch the replays. Just make sure you subscribe to the channel, and you'll be able to be notified when we end it and it goes to the replay and all that stuff. So I'm going to leave you guys with that. A lot of information today. I think it was pretty good, Chris. And I also dropped some resources there. If you want to download our 100K roadmap, just put 100K in the comments. If you want our email playbook, put email in there. And the one I didn't mention, if you want our SEO guide, just put SEO in the comments and we'll send you that guide too. So just put any one of those in there, and we'll make sure that we follow up, and we'll drop you the link. All right. So I believe that is it. This was a long one, but a good one. We had a lot to cover, and I want to thank you guys for hanging out with us. We appreciate each and every one of you, and keep us posted on your progress. Let us know if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. And as always, take care, take action. We'll see you next week. Take care, guys.